When times get tough, having emotional adaptability is without a doubt the number one skill you must have to generate the result you're actually looking for in life. In this episode, I sit down with Chris from the Unshakable Man, not to be confused with the Unbreakable Man, and we dissect really what it actually means to be both unbreakable and unshakable, the differences in the nuance. It's very interesting. And also, we guide you through the process of how to have emotional adaptability. In fact, he actually walks me through, he challenges me in that episode to dive deeper into myself. And I actually have a very vulnerable moment and I go through a powerful release. I actually get the benefit. That's why I love doing this work, because I get the benefit of both experiencing it in the first person and also teaching it for everyone out there. What you're going to learn in this episode will totally transform your life if you really take it and run with it. If you understand that you need emotional adaptability and you know how to implement it in your world, you will be able to show up as the man you want to be. Before we get into the episode, I want to take a second and just share what I'm going through personally on a personal side so that you can understand that though I do teach these things, I also experience them on a very deep and visceral level. I am personally going through a lot of inside out approach to life. I'm learning a lot more about myself. I'm starting to see the attachments I have to things. I'm starting to see where I'm not showing up and where I'm feeling codependent and where I'm noticing that I'm projecting my sense of belonging and love onto someone else, and I'm reclaiming that back into myself. Now, here's the interesting thing. That process is not easy. In fact, it's very difficult at times. And I know if you're going through a process of evolution for yourself, self-development, transformation, whatever word works for you, you must have a group of individuals around you in order to support you in that expansion. There's no way around it. If I didn't have people around me, both people, but also men in my life that are able to hold space, that they see me, that they understand what my experience is, I would not be able to get through what I'm getting through. I'll be completely honest. And in fact, I know that having a group of men around me that see me, that support me, that just hold space for me to express myself and whatever I need to express myself and find my truth is first and foremost. And that's why I have created the Unbreakable Man Brotherhood for men, for leaders just like you, to find the truth within. Because when you are a leader, when you are showing up in the world as a man, and that is what our sovereign duty is to be a leader. When you are showing up, no one around you really understands your processes. So you have to know that you can reach out to people and be vulnerable and get shit off your chest. You cannot be carrying that energy, that emotion, that stress that you've been carrying. You have to be able to emancipate it so that you can dive into, find your truth, and then ultimately show up in the world as the leader you know you can be. So if you are needing men, and by saying needing, I mean we all need this. If you know that this is really important to you and you want to be around a group of other men that can hold space for you, but also challenge you where you are not seeing where you're showing up, that's the beauty of having brothers in arms. So reach out, click the link in the description so you can register for the Unbreakable Man Brotherhood. I'm really looking forward to seeing you in there. And as always, enjoy the episode. Let's go. What is up, beautiful humans? This is Dr. Dave Cahotis. I am on a mission to forge strong, heart-centered, and purpose-driven men. This podcast is here to help you stop managing your problems and start breaking free of stress, limiting beliefs, and excuses that stop you from executing at your fullest potential, living with passion, and being the man you want to be. So let's go. Chris, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, man, it's good to be with you, Dr. Dave.
It's been a minute since you and I had our last chat, and you were kind enough to offer me a spot on your podcast, The Unshakable Man, which I love. I think that's how you and I originally met. I was just in the genesis of creating the embodiment of what the unbreakable man is. And I was like, hey, this guy over here is doing the unshakable man. I'm just going to just chat with you and ask you, well, what does that mean? Which is actually my first question for us today. And I think this is actually a really good place to start, which is this idea of what does it mean to be an unshakable man? And we could talk about potentially what it means to be an unbreakable man.
I love that, man. To be an unshakable man means to be able to open, to be
Mm,
with the experience of my life as it is, right? And to
mm,
notice my tendency to close or to try or to resist, and then to start to realize that like my life, my relationships, the environment is helping me open, right? And
mm,
in that
mm,
process of learning to open and to be with the experience of my life as it is, we learn to, and I love what you said, the embodiment, right, of Unbreakable Man, right? Like we discover this ability to embody our unshakableness, right? And but it's not from a place of trying, right? It's not from a place of like mask. I'm going to put a mask on and like pretend
mm.
to be that thing. It's
Yeah.
an actual practice.
I love that actually. I mean, you and I are very much akin to the world of the mind and the emotion, the emotional body. You know, we're both somatic practitioners, trauma informed, if that, you know, that's a term that's being kind of thrown around right now. You know, I can't, I guess, like officially say I'm a trauma therapist, though I come from a world of therapy and then in the somatic world. And then I realized, wait, there's something to this whole mind body. I read the book called The Body Keeps the Score, which then completely
Yep.
changed the course and direction of the way I treated, the way I practice, the way I work. I then got into trauma therapy because I had my own wounds of war and trauma and, you know, financial traumas, you name it, you know, all the
Yeah.
above. And, you know, I love what you said about openness. And I was actually reading this and I wanted to touch on this with you anyway. And I think this is a good place to kind of step in, which is a lot of men in our society don't feel safe to open up and they don't feel safe to be vulnerable. And in fact, I've seen that, you know, wholeheartedly. In fact, I posted something on Instagram recently that it went kind of viral. It was a
Uh,
video of guys just being like, I don't have anybody to reach out to. And then the last guy in that video was, he just said, I don't have anybody to reach out to. And if I did, that person would manipulate me. They would use it against me. And I feel
mm,
that's really true, you know, for a lot of guys that they don't feel safe to open themselves up and they feel that they could be manipulated in their vulnerability. You know, I have an idea
yeah.
of the antidote to that, but I'd be really curious your thoughts on, you know, how do you approach that?
Well, first, I'm approaching it right now by like softening my hands and
Mm,
just rubbing my thighs and caring for my own protective parts, right? That come up, right? Like,
hmm.
and like that story in our head is real and yet maybe not true, right? Like it's real, but not true. That statement
Mm,
of like, I'm reminded of, like we, when, as we, our experiences in our life,
mm,
as we've survived to get to where we are today, have sent us a message, right, that I need to close off, and then we form a story and a belief system and a way of relating with the world through the nervous system, right? And that experience is real, and that and yet the story in our head might not be true, right? And
yeah.
yet for, and I think it's so important to honor that, right? Like to it's we to recognize, and I think for me to talk about this, I'd rather talk about it from my direct experience. In my direct experience in relationship, in men's groups, and in retreats, in facilitating, is that we are creating a structure to create a brave space. We are creating a structure where our that has which
Mm,
is the masculine, which
mm,
allows the what is in the space to be experienced and to flow and to be directed. And we to just one example, when we check in, we arrive. We have 7 stages to an Unshakable Man circle. And the first one is to arrive. Then it's to set agreements, then to ground, then to check in, then to check in round 1, then check in again, then to check out of that first check in, then to check out, and then to inspire to integrate what was found in the circle.
Mm.
And those stages are there in order to start to allow our protective parts to trust us.
Mm.
So when I move through that experience and I survive and I get to the other end, then that part which has adapted to keep me safe starts to realize, wow, all these stories in my head were triggered during this experience, that like this guy's going to manipulate me. At any minute, this man might he's experiencing anger. He might get up and actually punch me in the face.
Yeah.
Right. Or right. Am I actually in this space? And one of the things that we share in these spaces is the spaces we create are not safe. They're brave spaces. And the reason why is because a brave space is a space where everyone in the space knows how to reinstate safety when it's lost, or is committed to doing their best to reinstate safety in the group when it is lost. And that's what we didn't have. That's what we have never experienced as human beings, and as men, and as human beings who put on us this image of manhood, right? And so I like to speak to those parts that, like, dude, those parts exist. They are here. We are not, if I'm trying to get you to open, that's going to get in the way. Like, just show up, right? Just practice, just be here. And as you begin to trust the space and you begin to become the primary caretaker for those parts, they'll soften, they'll open, right? And you'll be able to use the space.
That's very interesting. So you mentioned the word brave space versus safe space. And, help me understand like the connotation, like the difference between that.
Yeah, I think that, so this is, again, like, this is the paradox of this work, right? Like, we think we have an idea that we need a safe space. And that idea of needing a safe space creates an anxiety. It creates a tension. It creates these tools become, it's spiritual materialism. We learn these tools, and then what we start doing is we start saying, okay, I need to use these tools to clear out a space that doesn't disturb me. So a safe space is a space that doesn't allow a challenge to come in and something to disturb me, right?
Yeah,
but then what ends up happening is we're all being nice to each other, or it doesn't feel real, right? Like, I can't challenge you. I can't say like, hey, Dave, when you shook your head up and down and looked off into the distance, or touched your phone, I felt like you weren't paying attention to me. The story in my head is that you have somewhere better to be, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't just do that, right?
I am taking notes, by the way.
No, but I didn't actually feel that, right? But like, I'm just modeling that in a sense, right? But
yeah,
and that is the very thing that has gotten in the way of allowing us to develop, right? Like, we really have to fully understand that we do need to be challenged, right? But that is a very challenging thing to carry out beyond 12 people into a college institution, right? Into a community, which is why we need guys being trained, going to your retreats, right? Come into our retreats, right? To learn the skills, to then bring them out, right? And to fully appreciate the depth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad I got that connotation, because I use, and this is really important. And I think for anybody listening, understanding, like, if you're in an argument with your wife or your partner, asking them what they mean by specific words will, like, because their word could carry a completely different definition than what that word means for you. But when you said the word safe space versus brave space, in my knowing, I use the word safe space not in the context of like sort of the I don't know, like the young generation where they're like, I need to go to a safe space where I can't be bothered. Like, this is a safe space. It's actually exactly what you described in being a brave space, which means, listen, when you're in my, I also use the word container. When you're in my
Mhm.
container, I love you intensely and I'm going to call you out and we're going to speak truth. And truth hurts sometimes. And if you don't
Mhm.
speak truth, then it's not going to work out. Is everybody in
Mhm.
agreement? Everybody's yes. Okay. And then I also say what you see here, what you say here stays here when you leave here. It's a code amongst men that I believe is so valuable because for a man to be able to shed his own hurt and his own pain and all of the betrayals that he has been the perpetrator and been the victim of, whatever that thing is, he needs to be able to express that and get it off his chest and be able to release that and just say that what he needs to say in those moments.
Yeah.
And I love that
So
you were able to define that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, man. Yeah, and another reason why I was excited to be in here with you is because these things that we are discovering or we are doing together in relationship to me are discovered. They're natural. They're as natural as like the ground underneath us, and
Yeah.
we are becoming aware of them. And something I heard you just say is like you have this like series of things you go over
Mm-hmm.
with guys, and what I call that is crafting the alliance.
Mm.
And what I've found is that there's three things that really I didn't learn this in men's work. I learned this in working for a social emotional learning program for high school students that weren't going to go to college, and where I ran circles. And the three topics you have to talk about with all human beings in order to create a liminal space or a space of in between where you can actually learn and grow, not a safe space, race, right? Like not like
Yeah.
to the space we're talking about, right? Where you
Yeah.
can be challenged, but also be fully accepted in your reality is there's three things. So it's confidentiality versus secrecy, the three-part intention, which is my intention, your intention, and the intention co-created by the group.
Mm.
And then the paradox of safe space or cultivating a brave space. You actually have, you can call them different things, but you basically have to hit those three areas in order to get agreement from the group so that when there's a rupture, like when
Yeah.
you're aggressive, when you notice somebody like somebody shirking away from taking just clean responsibility for their actions, you can be like, hey man, when you said that, I'm feeling tight. My sense is you're really playing your victim here, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to call you up like into this. Like you're really more powerful when you take full responsibility for what happened and don't
Mm.
for what your actions, right?
Mm.
You need to have that confidentiality, that it's confidential, but it's not a secret. So you
Yeah.
can talk about this stuff, but it's confidential, like not what other people share.
Yeah.
That I have my intention for being here, you have yours, and together we have a shared intention of some sort. And
Yes.
then the third one is that like I am the paradox of safe space is that like if I actually try to make the space safe, I make the space unsafe. And
Yeah.
what that is like I remove things. I might remove things that in order to make you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the second I did that, I make the space sympathetic. I start sympathizing with people or being like, oh, caretaking you. And
Right.
that's not helping you. That's not really being real.
I love that actually. That's sort of an implied thing, but I don't speak it the way you just described it. And I'm gonna use that.
Take it,
I
man.
love that. Yeah.
Take it. Yeah,
That
yeah.
was beautiful because there is this implication and I give this example when I'm working with my guys in container. And I use the word in container
I
because
love that.
for me, the word container is like it's just that. I literally will close the door, right? It's like there is a space, right? A liminoid or a liminal space as you described
Yep.
it. That's a
Yep.
Jungian psychology. For people that don't necessarily know what that is, it's sort of like the space between spaces where we're going to go into the unknown. We're going to go and find something that we might be missing, and that something could be within ourselves.
It's
And
also a term in architecture. I was just told by an
oh,
architect
interesting.
at a retreat that
Oh,
like if you
cool.
don't have a liminal space between spaces, people they feel disturbed in a space. Like
Interesting.
if you have like a big conference room and then you're going to transition to like smaller spaces or office spaces, having a vestibule, a liminal space to transition energetically between the one space to the next changes the entire feel of the room without actually having more square footage.
That's really
And
fascinating.
we need it as
That's
humans.
super
We need
interesting.
an in between.
My wife and I so quick side note.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I are literally renovating our house right now. And
I'm
we were
sorry.
talking about creating this foyer in the front, moving our front door forward so that there could be this space so that when there's an entry, it's like there's this transition space into that's really fascinating. It's like
Yeah.
we sort of knew that innately, which is amazing.
Then all
So
you need to do is sage that. You don't
exactly,
have to
yeah,
do the whole.
totally. Sage it, and then, yeah, right. I love that. So, kind of going back to what we're talking about, which is the implication of challenge of being in containment, in again what I call containment or container with other men, being open, and you use the word open or vulnerable requires that we are also an empathetic witness to the individual, and we're not trying to fix, we're not trying to pry, we're not trying to as you were mentioning, being sympathetic or caretaking, but rather holding space, being an empathetic witness and allowing that individual to go through his process. And then in that, now the, whatever needs to be said can be said. And it's sort of exactly, it's like I just saw your hand motions where, for people that are not watching, it's right. And it's like this stepwise progression.
You're
And
dancing. You're dancing with this
exactly.
human
Yeah.
being.
Absolutely. And that's incredibly important. And one of the things that I didn't imply it was implied, but it wasn't spoken in my second retreat was exactly what you just described, which is when somebody is not open there, and especially coming from just these classic ways in which men would relate, which is close off, put on a mask, and then like kind of pry, and then they pry, and then they can test and they can judge and they can hide behind their own mask,
which is all protective.
Absolutely. And so I get, we get that, which is totally natural. And when it came to a moment of the big release, I call it the big release. There's a moment after day one where we go through a somatic process, and you will let go of whatever you're holding on to. It's a massive, like everything I do is by design, and it's in that moment that it's like your heart's about to crack open. And I even
call that the wild man.
Absolutely, yeah. I even described what would happen inside of you right before that. I said you will feel completely uneasy. You will feel like you want to run. You'll feel like you're going to die. You'll have heart palpitations. All of these symptoms will happen because you're about to energetically release. And so we got to that moment, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I didn't set the container well enough verbally. I didn't communicate that everyone could challenge everyone, and that there would be safe space for that, like safe space to be
any and all emotions.
Yes, challenge. And so this individual left. He literally felt so challenged, so threatened by the experience that he left. And everyone that stayed got the experience. And I said, listen,
right now, Dave, like,
yes.
What are you feeling as you say that?
Yeah. That's as I say that, I feel tight in my chest.
Can you bring care for that part? I want to feel caring for that part on me. Right.
Okay.
We just told a story about a man, and that's a real experience. And now we're working with it in the present.
Yeah.
Right. And so right now, as I'm thinking about that man leaving, instead of talking about it, I want to just feel it and then practice caring for it. Right. And
so when you say caring for it, you mean the emotion of it or the man of it, or like the emotion as you point to the self, right? So it's like, if I go into myself, I feel, and I'll use I feel statements. I think this is a great practice. I'm being taught. This is why I love this podcast, because I can both learn and also teach at the same time. This is be the beginner mind.
And you be in it. And I want to congratulate you for opening for me right then and answering in your show, in your container.
Yeah.
Right. But So what are you? Can you feel it? Can you feel it still? Is it still
Yeah.
there?
So sorry. I wanted to sort of give context because this is both audio and also
Mhm.
yes. So as I'm gonna feel into this. As I feel into this, I feel
You
a
can tell the
residual.
story.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. I feel a residual letdown.
Mm.
I let this man down that I
Yeah.
didn't do enough
Okay. So now
for.
you feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you feel it. What are you
Yeah.
feeling?
Um a sadness, like a rattling, a
Where is it?
right on
Where
my
in your
heart
body?
center. Right on my heart center.
Okay. What does it need?
Mm.
There it is. That's what it needed. What is that?
Just needed to be felt. It needed to be honored. It needed to be
Yeah.
experienced. That it's okay. That
Yeah.
what happened happened and that it's
Yeah.
okay.
So now just send this to him. And I just felt sad and
Mm-hmm.
happy and joyful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
That,
feel rushed.
that,
I'm with you.
yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. And then I like to shake my hands off after to just literally ring out whatever that was, right? To create some space for it. Thanks
Yeah.
for doing
One.
that with me, man.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you for going in there.
That was a beautiful practice. That yeah, that's beautiful. That was a really simple, straightforward, and I needed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
that was actually really, yeah, very, that was really
Dave,
simple. Yeah.
when you said I wish I did something wrong or I didn't set the container verbally, right now, you practicing and doing that with me, you are, to me, I am witnessing a man embodying what needed to be embodied before, not said. Like when you feel this, you feel it,
Mm,
you'll remember now, right? Like the
yes.
story, right? Like you're not going to try to set a brittle container and be scared of a man leaving. You're going to be like, I can feel the tenderness of what this container needs, right?
Mm,
Right? Because it
mm-hmm.
imprints in you,
Yeah.
right? And you
Mm,
appreciate it, like the depth of what you're creating and what you're doing. I see it, man. I see it. Like
mm-hmm.
we're here 2 years later for a reason.
Yeah. There, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That was really, I really, man, that was really special. It's almost like I want to just like sit in that for a second and like
Yeah. Yeah.
when you do that work, and I'll just speak from my end, I'll sort of be the one being coached right now, right? When I do that work, you are correct. There's a knowing. It's not a thinking. I get out of the thinking mind and I go into the knowing, and you describe the, it's like you take the emotional charge. I've used this term before. You take the emotional charge out of the experience and then you have wisdom. It's you go from learned experience into wisdom, and that wisdom then carries an understanding that, oh yeah, like this is my truth. And in your truth, then you can express however you choose. You can move to LA and do whatever you want to do. You can.
Yeah. It's beyond belief. It doesn't make
It's
sense.
so incredible. I in fact I literally got a text today from one of my guys that said, he's like, I can't believe I'm moving to LA to pursue my dream as an actor. Like, I fucking love you. And I was like, yeah, man, that's
Oh,
so dope. Let's go. And so it's man,
so
it's
I
yeah,
just celebrated.
yeah. It's like,
So that's another thing, right? Like
yeah,
just do it. You don't think it, you celebrate it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah. That
rad,
was a
man.
very yeah, man, I'll be honest, that was a very gentle approach to somatic work. That was really special. I'm gonna pick up on that. I'm gonna learn from the master over here. It's like we are all masters of our craft.
Yeah,
I have a much more let's fucking go, kind of
yeah,
approach, which is just the way I operate, and it's my MO, and I love it. And it resonates. It just
can I
resonates with certain individuals. And so I think
It
it's
does.
special.
Can I say something about
Yeah,
that? Like
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
please.
see in you in that? And
Yeah.
like that is so first of all, thank you. When I see something, right? And which is the masculine to see, and it's penetrative
Yeah.
to come into your space, right? That
Mm-hmm.
it's courageous of you you didn't protect, you didn't you actually went in there in
Yeah.
the environment where you feel I'm in your space right now. You invited me to be here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel a shiver when I say that, like, like, right? Like, oh, okay, right. And then there's like this, you're like you self-identify as I'm this and I see that. Like I see what you create on Instagram. I see how your creative gift to the world, like how it's being projected, how it's coming through. And I see how mine is coming through. But oftentimes I wonder, is this really me? Like, am I really like it oftentimes feels so
Mm-hmm.
much of like I am discovering who I am in a way. Like
Mm.
I'm learning how to develop these practices and how to birth them, how to bring it out into the world. And that creative process is so full and neat and and yet like when I see an image of men like there is like an aggression, right? There is an aggression which is very natural and very freaking fucking real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? The wild man, right? Right, like you're just going for it. I just ruined your audio leveling,
No, you're
right?
good, man.
But that some people see it and it triggers them. It places a finger on a place inside that says, "Oh, unbreakable man." And I'm going to be judgmental. I'm going to let my like military, Navy SEAL, king in a rigid sense, right? Like king, warrior, magician, lover. And yet, like I used to have a problem with the word king. I
Yeah.
couldn't embody my king. I couldn't allow myself to embody my king because there was that archetype to me. I didn't feel it. I couldn't hold it for myself. And I had to go
Yeah.
through that for like four
Yeah.
or 5 years in this work to now where now it is, I can be in my king. I can realize that for my king to reject anything in my environment becomes a problem. Like this is my environment. Like I can't
Yeah.
reject that. Right. If I
Mm.
reject something, right. And what I see is that in our practice, we have our embodied masculine practice. It usually happens in like it happens the morning of the first, second, and third day. And as we create that container, we learn to come into the space. We learn how to create the space, how to organize it, how to create it in a different shape than a circle, so that because the shape of the space matters how the energy moves through it. And then on the second day, we learned to hold it into a standing posture and then how to hold a man's rage, his sacred rage, how to
Mm-hmm.
stand in the front of it 6 inches from a man's face and allow him to find that place inside that hasn't had a voice, it's been rejected or hurt, and to just realize that as this man finds his inner rage, his sacred rage, his warrior, that anger can take a life or anger can save a life. And that to notice my body shrinking and to choose to open to it, to expand, to be with what this man is bringing into the space, and to realize that in that moment, I am making a choice. I can choose to close, but my life
Yeah.
depends on it.
Yeah.
The experience of my life depends on my choice. So if
Yeah.
I choose to shrink, right? And we might need support from other men to open to, right? And we might fall down. We might step away. We might need to leave the space like that man needed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we do it, we always have a chance to come back into the container, right? To reflect on it and to tend and mend, right? And that next process of men taking care of other men, right?
Mm.
Which that happens, but then we have the ability to be tender, to like do what something very similar to what I just felt with you, where it's like to be with a man and to feel the sadness, right? To like brotherly love, right? To just hold a man,
Yeah.
right? And like we just don't have many examples of that in our life, right? To go,
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's so important to be able to articulate. And I will just say the word embody again. I like that word. I think it fits.
I'm with you.
Yeah, to embody the warrior. And you mentioned the word king, and I speak on this archetype. And if anybody's listening that doesn't know what an archetype is, it's an energy that we can channel that gives us some semblance of benefit. It can also come with its shadows, its own shadow, if we deny it. But in the case of, for instance, the king archetype, it brings forward purpose and drive and clarity and vision, like you were saying, and
And it's the
fertility.
integration of the other three,
Exactly,
right?
with the
The
integration of
warrior,
the
the
other three.
lover.
And in that, oftentimes, and I see this for most men, that there's sort of, in a way, two camps. And the camp is either I'm going to be sort of hyper, kind of warrior masculinated in a way. Like that's a kind of what a lot of people are kind of calling what is toxic masculinity, even though I don't even like that term.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think that
yeah.
there's necessarily,
Corrosive masculinity is what I
yeah,
like to call it.
I think there can be shadow in both sides. But then on the other side is individuals who have been hurt by the masculine representation in their life. And exactly, then they throw away or put into the shadow their assertiveness and their drive and their focus, and they don't allow themselves to articulate with the warrior within, like you were describing, which can come forward. And I call it fire, man. It's like when you tap into this power within, you are going to find fire, and fire brings the energy of rage. It can be,
It's
it can
creative.
absolutely. And it can cook the man's food, or it can cook the man. It
Yeah,
can, it can
yeah.
be incredible. It can warm the house
Mhm.
and bring forward, hot food on the table, but it also can burn the house down when we pretend like it doesn't exist. So we have to learn how to contain it, right? We have to
Yeah,
understand the power of it. Exactly. Like you don't
yeah.
put
How
fire,
to direct it? How to
exactly,
in the container?
exactly. You don't put a fire in the middle of your kitchen and like expect it to not burn the whole kitchen down. You put it into like the old, old wood burning stove style. My grandma actually had one back in the day, man. It was awesome. She put fire into this wood burning stove, and then she could warm food on top of the stove. And so being able to know and articulate with that warrior within is so vital. And you're absolutely right. It's, I kind of bring forward this, um, the type of man that I am connecting with the most is the kind of guy
Yeah.
that is looking for that, or they're looking for the type of uh, either the warrior within, or they already articulate with that, and they don't
Hmm.
know what the fuck to do. They got pain. Like I get a lot of
Hmm.
military guys that reach out. They're the pretty classic businessman, and he knows that there's something going on. There's something wrong underneath the surface, and he doesn't
Yeah.
really know. And so, what we put out on the surface, looks like, come to this boot camp, and
Hmm.
then, we talk about we talk
Yeah.
about, all right, here we are.
Maybe.
Like we're going to use
Yeah.
that same warrior energy that we would put on armor, that hat or that helmet, and that body armor that goes into battle is the same energy we're going to use to take the armor off, and we're going to go deeper within, and we're going to find ourselves. And I've gotten that actually from a Marine. He was like, it's actually easier for me to run into battle than it is
Yeah.
with it. I was like, absolutely, there's
Definitely
truth
it
to
is.
that,
Yeah. Beautiful, man.
which is beautiful. I love, so kind of going back to, you were talking about retreats. I want to talk about retreats and why in person is so powerful for men
Yeah.
specifically, and why do men need to get together with other men, like go fucking rage at each other, right?
Yeah.
Why is this a thing? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so much value in it. But I'm really curious your perspective
Yeah.
on your retreats, and then I can speak on mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll relate it to what you shared about the fire. And I also really appreciate that you're in love. You're in love with the persona of the man that you're attracting, right? Like
Hmm.
you're aware of like the men who are responding to the archetype of the warrior that are coming in for you. I would say for me, I noticed that what's like we have a community we've been practicing for 5 years, and during the pandemic we really um it's not we went deep into a container online, and I noticed that like we had like 80 guys here in the community practicing across 5 groups a week, and it became very hard for a new man to come in, for a new man to join. Not that not And I don't know if it was hard or if it was just that like I wanted guys to come in. I wanted to make it easy for guys to come in, but they were only coming from when I went out and did a cohort or I did an outside experience. And then men would experience the outside experience and then be like, oh, how do I get more? How do I continue this practice that was so special? And the reason why I'm saying that is because the retreat to me is a utility. It is not, these practices are tools. They are not, um, they are not fantastic. They're not for novelty, right? They're not just for entertainment. They're tools for our development and our growth.
Hmm.
And the retreat is something that a human being, that a man can say, I am going to make time in my life important. I am going to leave my default life and relationships for
Hmm.
3 days or for 4 days or for
Yeah.
10 days. I am going to leave. I am going to go out of the default life and social milieu that I'm in, and I'm going to go into a place that is different. And that that choice to do that is a choice. It's a yes or no. You either do it or you don't.
Yes.
And when you arrive in that parking lot, right? When you arrive, and I'm speaking just from mine, and I'm seeing that it probably relates to yours because this is how this stuff works. Is then for in our community, what I notice is that our archetype is more of the, I would say like the man who wants to develop a practice. He wants to, and I do not look at these as mutually exclusive. If
Yeah.
anything, I see a lot of overlap. It's just vibrating at a different level,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
right. And I think the practice you and I just did of going into the body is the difference, right? There are men who are like, we need to work through that higher level stuff. What I'm doing, I think, and oftentimes really doesn't resonate with a lot of guys in that archetype because it's too sensitive at some stages,
Yeah.
right? It's like, is like it challenges the sense of being the warrior to begin with, but we are absolutely working with warrior energy, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say the retreat is that opportunity to say this weekend, and I think from an adaptive training perspective, like it's a once a year thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to be out on retreat in order to maintain seasonal growth and development
Mm.
at least once a year, right? Like
Yeah.
just right, like you're making this investment in yourself. You're leaving your partner, your kids, your job, your family, and you're saying my growth and development is important. I'm going to go do something for myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now, when guys come in our group, you have guys that have been practicing together and you have guys who are brand new. And I call
Mm.
it answering the call. And when you mix that group, when you mix a group of men who have been in a container for a year and a half together,
Mm.
practicing week in, week out, 4 times a month for 2 hours a week, when I get the opportunity to witness those men practicing, I see myself through their experience and my
Mm.
growth and development skyrockets, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like seeing someone run a 5 minute mile. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, everybody knows that it's possible,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
we do not get that to see that in our social milieu in our default life
Hmm.
because everyone's in a protective mask because it's adaptive,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so that is my perspective on the retreat. And then after the retreat, there's the work of integration and bringing the work from there with the men who you've experienced this with. You now have context, you have norms,
Yeah.
right? And then you integrate that into your life. you track each other.
Yeah, I love that. I could very much see how the way our processes work are very similar and also different. I mean, even the word sacred rage, we have a practice. I don't like to give it away. Mine is like there's so much mystery into mine. Although I'm gonna start just telling people exactly what they're gonna get, and then they're gonna
Well,
still get it. They're still gonna get a ton of stuff out of it. But the
yeah,
sacred
there's
rage, yeah,
something special about it being being quiet is that's functional,
yeah, yeah.
right?
There
Like,
very much in the land of mystery, the ego searches and it has to surrender
mhm.
into the unknown, as Elsa would sing in Frozen 2. I have kids, man. I
Yeah, I
know
know you
every
do.
lyric to every Disney song now. It's like
Look at
it's so
you.
funny. Such a dad.
Yeah,
So I
that's
wanted to
awesome.
touch on, there's so much benefit in what you're doing, and I can see how even for me in this now moment, it was at my edge of like, all right, well, I'll go. I'll show that I'm doing the work. This is how I do the work too, and I can see how for a guy like me that's been doing the work, to do it with you in that softness, like, can I get softer? Can I get softer, softer, soft? Like almost like
Yeah.
into a depth. I can very much see how me showing up to your container would be incredibly beneficial to me.
And vice
And
versa, man. Vice
yeah,
versa.
yeah. And I see that very much. And I see how like we're very much still doing there's a lot of commonality overlap, but it doesn't mean that it's like exclusive, right? It's like it has to be one camp or the other. I think that's why I really enjoyed our first conversation
Mhm.
because like this idea of the unshakable man and the unbreakable man, which
Mhm.
is they're very similar but different. My context, like I guess my definition of unbreakable is a little bit different.
Go for it. I'd
Which
love
I'll
to hear it.
talk about. Well, let me.
Yeah.
I'll come back. Let me come back to this. But I want to talk about the softness and actually the challenge of that specifically. And I saw a few of your posts relative to somebody that was challenging, that felt very challenged by your approach. And I remember him speaking on, in one of his comments, he wrote like, and you asked him like, well, what do you do? And to express yourself. And he's like, I shoot my AK or my AR and I
Oh,
do all these,
yeah. So
and
right now I'm practicing feeling caring, right? Caring for that part and yeah, sending it to him.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so yeah, that so my question is, relative to that subject is how do you approach the man that still is very much because we still need to meet men where they're at, no matter what.
Yeah.
Because like we are doing deep work here, but how do you meet guys where they're at within your own approach, or do you not even worry about it?
Thanks for giving me that option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't worry about it. I definitely don't worry about it. I have gotten hooked by it, and that's led to rumination or worrying about it.
Hmm.
Like that comment specifically, like I noticed for 3 days feel I could feel how my choice to communicate in the way that I did was a choice, and it took my energy and awareness into that. And the reality is that through practice is that I don't think, like I know that that isn't going to work. It's not going to bring that create an environment where that man is seeing something through what I am putting out into the world, and it is help he is seeing what I'm doing through his own protective mask, right?
Yeah.
And this, I'm sure, is very similar to men who might see a group of men doing like sacred combat in one of your retreats and think, oh, that's a macho activity. And it's like, no, well, you're seeing it through this lens, but
Yeah.
actually, like when we feel the environment push back against us through sacred combat, we actually realize we're a natural part of the environment. We have limits. We
Yeah.
don't walk through the world like everything here is mine and I can consume everything and there's no result, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing, right? Like and men, we need that,
Hmm.
right? Like we're not having babies, we are birthing creations to
Yeah.
allow people to hold these spaces, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I do want to come back to that. Meeting men where they're at, like they're they're this is very important to me. And it's important. in how it brought in, because we're meeting men where they're at, but we're not saying that you're a victim, right? Like we're saying, hey man, come and be with me, come and try and answer the call to your life. And they have to trust there is a step into the unknown that a man has to
Mm,
take. And so it's not like I'm not trying to win anyone over. Like it's just like here, like being with you. Like you're there's one way to look at this, and that's to feel tight and to be like, oh, the unbreakable man, and to be like, oh, he's a competitor. And it's like it's just red ocean, right? It's red ocean strategy versus blue. It
yeah.
takes energy away. It's like going after supply lines versus being like, it drains your energy. It gets you into a place of protection versus coming here and being open and vulnerable, and then getting to share my practice with you. And then you being like, dude, I could probably really integrate some stuff for my own practice, right? I'm working in like I'm all up here, right? And I'm telling you, man, I feel that with me, right? Like in our practice, I know that like that's why I go to other men's practices. I have men out there that I go specifically to their things for my own development,
Yeah.
right? And that
Yeah.
I think that that's really important for guys that are creating space.
Yeah. I totally agree. There was almost so much goodness in that. I'm gonna just,
Yeah.
I'm gonna like slightly pivot, but also like we're gonna come back kind of to the old
Cool.
overarching thing. You mentioned the Unbreakable Man, and I'll kind of speak on that because I think it is important. It's like it doesn't mean that you can't be broken. That's really important. It's sort of this. I read a book a while ago called Anti-Fragile by
Yeah,
Nassim
I knew
Taleb.
you were gonna say
Yeah,
anti-fragile.
and it's sort of like there's no such thing as both durability and even fragility. It's almost like this. It's like kind of this what's called anti-fragile, and through going through the small hits of life, right? We go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, and we reclaim those parts of our soul that we've lost. And when we become a whole man, then we are unbreakable, right? We sort of like reclaim
Anti-fragile.
the parts of the self,
Mhm.
and the part of us that we feel shame or grief or guilt or betrayal. We go into the depths of our psyche, of ourself, and we have a conversation maybe with and we walk guys through different practices. We do a lot of, and there's a lot of common themes, right? There's the father wound, the mother wound, the inner
Yeah.
child, the
Yeah.
the sacred rage, all of these things. And so for me, the word unbreakable originally did come from this sense of your higher self, or something that's this consciousness, which is a sticky word because a lot of people are, what is that? Can you frame that? It's like, no, you can't, because it's infinite, it's ever present.
It's something to experience.
Exactly, it's just something to experience. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And so for us, why I actually call it the Unbreakable Man experience, rather than like the Unbreakable Man retreat, is because it's going to be an experience. Like, you are going to be guided through a series of evolutions where you will not know what you're about to get into. And even in the known, there's always an unknown. So they're like, the guys know that, like, it's in every video and I talk about it. You're going to get into a body of water full of ice. Like, I'm just going to tell you, but there's going to be unknowns in that. And I'm going
Yeah.
to guide you through that process. And the whole point while in that is like the frame and the understanding that in that, whatever you need to feel, whatever rage and scared and I'm going to die, I want you to feel that and feel that more and let out whatever you need to let out. We had a guy come through a little while ago, and you would have thought he was being murdered. He was letting it out like, "Ah!" And I'm like, the neighbors, like, we're on a retreat, like a retreat center, which is like many acres. And I think like
Yeah.
even the neighbors, like way far away, like would probably like,
Yeah.
dude, are they murdering people over there? Cause he was screaming bloody murder, man. And but it was so beautiful because after that experience, he's like, I have never been able to tap into that depth before. I was like, yes. And then
Yeah.
he got to the next practice, and it was like a full 180 reset. And I was like, that's it. Like, fuck yeah, let's go, And so I was so proud of him. He's the guy actually that's moving across the country to LA to pursue his acting career, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So So yeah, the Unbreakable Man is, from a definition perspective, it's a combination of finding your own truth, your inner knowing, going after that part of you that you feel is missing, and just to be a whole man. And within that, there's the context of masculine structures of the king and the warrior, these archetypes that Carl Jung sort of coined, and then we are starting to see this in the collective consciousness of both men's work, but also just in life of, yes, like, these elements of ourself that we can tap into and be the best version of ourself, which is powerful. And I will say mine is more of a one-way door, and I kind of have it like that. And maybe this is where we can
What do
go.
you mean?
I'll give an example, like a vision quest, a ritual initiation, or rite of passage. These have always been a part of the becoming of, from boyhood psychology into manhood psychology.
Yeah.
And I use this, and I feel very called to this practice because for me, I needed that. And I received that in the context of the military, but it's what's called a pseudo initiation. And pseudo initiation gets you to the ordeal, which is you are about to reclaim the part of yourself that is lost, and it stops. So it goes through the warriorship and the initiatory rite of passage, but it doesn't help you become a whole individual. Pseudo initiation puts you into, and this is sort of the difference between like a cult and like actual initiation. An actual initiation helps you find the answer within the self, whereas pseudo initiation puts you into, let's say, like hazing in a fraternity is an example of this. You're now part of us rather than you are an individual within the collective. Right. And what I'm trying to solve for is you are then the individual, the whole sovereign individual, and you can choose to be part of what we're doing, or you can go and start your own thing. And that's beautiful. For me it feels the most truth. I think it's, sort of an Ayn Rand approach, to life.
Yeah. It's a very important vehicle that's very, very important.
Yeah. And so for us, it's more like to show up at retreat. And it's not that I'm not allowing guys, I'm definitely allowing guys to come back, but more as a facilitator, as a volunteer, to help hold space and guide other guys through their own experience so that they can process and release whatever is in the way. But
same thing for us. Yeah. You don't go through the same experience twice. Like, you now are there to take another man on his journey.
Yeah.
Deeper and so deepen your own practice.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of my question, which is, your take on, sort of ritual, like rites of passage. And you mentioned like guys come back or can come back yearly or go on retreat yearly, for you and your collective, what, maybe walk me through what the difference is there.
I'd say that the main, and this probably is coming out in the softness, right? Like what you see in there, right? Like, so we practice in 5 major areas. We practice in the experience of our life, right? Like I practice and I got a parking ticket yesterday. I watched the car come up. I ran down the stairs. I bolted outside to catch them, and I watched the guy drive away, giving me a look. And that was a chance for me to practice, right? Yeah. Like to be like, pick it up, crumple it up in a little ball, like, right?
I've been there in San Francisco. Yes.
Project this at that guy, or am I going to like feel this for myself? Right. So there's like so there's practice, right? I get to practice with a trusted mentor, right? Or a teacher or a coach. I get to practice in group, right? Which is similar. And then I get to practice in retreat.
Yeah.
And then I get to practice on my cushion.
Okay.
Right. So
yeah.
These are all the landscapes that we get to practice in. And there is absolutely a really important thing in an experience ending, right? Like the finality, the closing of a container, right? To be able to look back on that experience as an integrated individual. And I see that the power in that for what you've created, right? Like that's very important. And I think we do a similar practice in our cohorts and our groups. My advanced practice group, I run a seasonal group. The group continues, but we move through we move through a seasonal process of answering the call to our life, going into the cave of the unconscious, and then integrating inner and outer purpose every 3 months. And when you go through that, when we finish that season, we all celebrate, we all appreciate and close the container and then choose to answer the call again. We choose to be back in the group. And what that helps is it helps make sure that you're not just showing up to the group because you have a group, which happens, right? We start to come into group and relax and fall apart and like show up late and like, because we actually have to choose to show up in our life. And then we go unconscious, we relax, right? The autonomic nervous system comes in, we get habitual. And this happens with meditators, right? This happens on my seat cushion that I'm sitting on right now, right? And so, and the only way out of it is to feel your way out of it. You can't think your way out of it, right? You can only discern it through the body. It can only be felt in the body. And it's something to experience. I said that phrase earlier. All that I think if you're okay with it, like I feel protective, but like I do feel like we're doing the same things in our own expression, right? Like as two human beings with a creative practice, right? Like these are things we birth.
I 100% agree. It's like
Cool.
was it the rhesus monkey experiment where they like would, have coconuts, or there's like this experiment where it's like a conscious, collective consciousness where they would have these sandy coconuts and then they would like learn how to wash them off. And then it was like this other island, they like learned how to do this without even interacting with each other. It was,
I love it.
Very fascinating. I want to touch on just, okay. And I'll kind of tap into myself. Currently in the now moment, I feel incredibly easy. And coming into this conversation, I was going through a bit of discovery within my truth, which I won't touch on currently. I will definitely share what I'm going through, but like usually after I go through the process, then I'll share like kind of the ins and outs. But I want to touch on this because I think this is really important. When an individual is sovereign, meaning he is tapped into his king within, like you have described, he's in his knowing and he's done the work. And the work is he's healed his wounds. He has gone into the dark recesses of his own psyche and he has reclaimed these parts of his soul that he has lost. Yes, correct. As you raise your hand.
First of all, I feel tight at the idea that he can ever be done.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Like there is no done, but
there's no done the work.
There is
like
no done.
I'm doing
or
it.
done some work, right? There is no done. Correct. That is sorry. That was an implied
I'm with you. Yes.
An implied thing, but yeah, there is no done. You're never done. There's always more parking tickets in the world to be given.
Yes. Celestial parking tickets.
Right. But why I bring this up is in connection with you, I feel easy, right? So I was feeling tight. Your nervous system is regulated, and you and I connecting right now allowed me to reintegrate and tap back into, oh yeah, like I know that space. I can soften. And in that softening, I feel easy. And in that ease, I feel playful. In the playfulness, I feel joy, right? In the joy, like, it kind of continues to move. And
so those, I could say, qualities of self energy, the 9 C's of self energy: calm, creative, compassionate, caring, connected. When you drop out of a protective state and into the body, you automatically feel this way. And then when you develop skill, wow, I can't believe you're doing this with other people walking around the room. Good for you.
It's a private office. It's a quick side note. My office mate, it's a private office, and he wanted to use the bathroom. So
it's fine. It's fine. I can't even do this with a cat in the room.
I know.
So like when you learn to drop out of your head and into your body and to trust that, when we say the head, egoic patterns, right? Protective parts, they've all formed to help us feel safe. Right. And so then what I'm witnessing, my story of what I'm witnessing is one nervous system is here. By your projecting onto me that I was somehow more regulated than you. Maybe that's the case, but I'm just doing me, right? I'm practicing, dropping into my body. into my belly and opening to the space to be with you, right? And
Mm,
we absolutely pick up on that, right? Like
mhm.
autonomically below the conscious level, right?
Yeah.
And then when you drop in there and you feel it, all of a sudden the story in your head shifts because the story in your head is based on the state of the body, which is it's real, but not true. And that's what I meant before is when you practice dropping in, the story in your head shifts. And with skill of going into group and then back into your life, into group, back into life, into group, back into life, you get better and better at letting go of the story in your head to protect yourself and getting into your body. And then it's all about expanding that in my experience, right? You're expanding that influence on your environment wider and wider,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Right.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I was
Mm.
giving you a compliment.
Thanks,
I
man.
feel
I'm
good,
received.
man.
Yeah, man.
I-
I'm in here to be with you, and I
yeah, man.
absolutely, I see what you're doing. I see it's rad.
Yeah, man. Yeah, likewise. It's but yeah, like it's like I feel safe to be seen. I feel safe to be myself. And I think we need that in collection, or the collective in collaboration with other men. It's sort of this movement from competition into collaboration, and you and I doing very, very similar work. We're able to connect and we're able to create, in that space. Like you were mentioning the blue ocean strategy. It's so
Yeah.
much easier on the nervous system. It's so much more relaxing, and we can communicate. And
Powerful.
yeah, yeah. And it's absolutely true. It's like, there can't be enough therapists in the world, right? It's like everybody needs to share. Everybody needs to share.
Yeah.
um okay, we got about 15 minutes. And if
Okay.
you feel, you mentioned the word practice. You
Yeah.
were like, I could practice in my experience, in the
Yep.
experience with a mentor, with a group, with a retreat. I wrote these down, or on my
Nice.
cushion. So a couple questions. What specifically what do you mean by practice? What is your practice?
Mhm.
And if you don't mind sharing, like you mentioned, kind of opening and then practice and then closing, what does that look like? If you want to even walk us through what that might be.
Yeah, man. Let's do it. How long do we have? 15 minutes?
About, yeah, 15 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's can we just do this like it's just the two of us?
Let's do it, man. I'm
All
in.
right.
So am I
All right.
in just for clarity, am I the student?
No, I'll lead, but we're mutually opening
Okay. Okay.
together.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's check in together and I'm gonna share a practice, a 3x3 check-in.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so this is a tool that we use in order to get to practice checking in to get out of the head into the body. We usually and I'm gonna walk us through as if we were in a triad or as if we were in a group. Like, and let's say the third person in the triad is the person that's listening to this,
Okay.
right? So they can
Perfect.
participate.
Yes.
So what I'd invite is like for everybody to just arrive here in the space,
Mhm.
right? And the reason why we arrive is to recognize that we can be somewhere else.
Yes. Mhm.
We're cutting through initial thing. And there's always a reason for each practice. So you get to be like, oh, cool. Like I'm going to arrive here. So now recognize like, how do I arrive and find your own way to arrive? Like I like to just look around the room. Yeah, you're moving your body. Right? I'm coming in, I'm arriving here. And so now we're going to move into the second stage, and that's just setting some agreements, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm going to do this briskly, but confidentiality versus secrecy, right? We're recording this. So I'm just going to acknowledge, right, that like we both feel okay with like sharing whatever we share here.
Oh,
Is that
I'm
cool with
and
you?
I'm an open book. I do share
Cool,
literally anything on this podcast.
cool,
That's
cool,
me.
cool.
That's me, right?
Right. And what's important is agreement on that. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all that, right?
Mm.
So I'm raising my hand. I'm agreeing with that, right? So my intention here, and notice how I don't speak for you, I'm speaking for myself. And then this is an opportunity for you to feel if you feel connected to what my intention is.
Okay.
So my intention is to create a space where I can practice slowing down and practice tools and skills to get out of my head in egoic patterns and to get into my body
Mm.
where I can learn to show up to my life in a more empowering way.
Ooh, okay.
Feel resonant? You
That
in?
I resonate with that. Yeah, absolutely. Like,
Awesome.
and when you say, does that feel resonant? Is it that if I didn't feel it, that I'm kind of calling bullshit on you? Is that what you describe?
When I ask, does it feel resonant or sensational? Is it might feel scary, but I feel attracted to it.
Okay.
So we can reject things, right? Like,
Yes.
and so if you call bullshit to it, we're not going to move past that. We're going to stay there together, right?
Okay.
Like we'll probably end up talking about stuff and
Okay.
not practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if
Yeah.
I go, I'm like, no, like I've been in a container before where it was kind of like that, where we were announcing our intention and it was like a either like a yeah or like a no, like I'm not buying it. And then that individual went deeper and then they found the true intention, right? That they were resonating with. Yeah. Which is good.
Rad. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you engaging on this. I'm feeling like this is the natural thing that happens. So then the second part to that is just appreciating that you and I just created a very special container, right? Because we have a shared intention,
Yeah.
right? And that
Yeah.
is different than the default world that we came from outside, where the people in our life might not have the same shared intention. So we can't practice with them one on one the way we're gonna.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
So
So
now the container's deepening.
yeah, I wanted to just clarify so that I have an understanding. You set the intention for the group, for the collective. Like,
I share my intention into the group
okay,
and I
okay,
give the group the opportunity to feel if they yes or no.
yeah,
Like, do I feel connected to that? Right.
yeah,
Intention.
yeah.
Right.
So the facilitator, I guess I should say,
Yep.
taps in.
Yep.
Okay, yeah,
Yep. Yep.
gotcha.
And primarily there's really like two segments of intentions. There's like, it's really like, is your intention to practice or is your intention to like intellectualize and understand your experience? Because if you're here to understand and intellectualize your experience, we can't really practice that well,
Yeah, yeah,
right? We get into our heads and we start
yeah, yeah.
going up here.
Right.
So the third one is just I'm going to take full responsibility for my own experience to let the group know, to let you know if I feel uncomfortable or if I feel something. Like that's my responsibility. So I get that. And that's the brave space. So do you feel like you can take responsibility to let me know what you're feeling? I don't have
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
interpret it. I don't have to caretake for you.
Yes. Yes. I'm here. 100%.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we crafted the alliance.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're in that like second ring. So now we're going to ground and we're not going to do a 10-minute somatic meditation, but let's do something. So go ahead and just come into your body and find something to fix your gaze on, something natural maybe. And then just go ahead and breathe in your nose and out your mouth, in your nose and out your mouth. Just overextending your exhales, maybe pulling your belly in. And I'm just going to do this 6 times, 6 long exhales. So 6, 5, 4, letting your body move and take the shape that it wants to. 3, and last 2, 2. And now on this final one, go ahead and inhale in your nose and take 3 sniffs at the top. Hold. Let it out. All right. We'll just call that our grounding. So just checking in with you. You notice anything change about your state?
Soft. Definitely feel grounded. My belly is open.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. How are we? We have 10 minutes.
Relative. We can go over. It's just
You have a hard stop?
I don't have a hard stop.
Great. I don't either. I'd like to just continue for at least our 10.
Yeah.
So here we are. We've grounded, okay? And if there's a third person in here or a group, this is where we are we have now gone through arriving an agreement setting, and now we've grounded, and grounding is so important because it is always a practice to get out of our head and into the body. Coming into the body is something to experience. It is not a thought. It's not an idea. It's not a concept or a belief system. It's a direct physical experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we get better and better at it. And then once we get in there, we get a sense of what it feels like. And that can only be felt. I can't tell you what it's like to be in my body. Then I'm telling you what something to experience is, and then it becomes that. That's why it's called something to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I have to in the unconditioned space in your belly is the space that we're grounding down into. And we didn't do that today. We didn't go through a 10-minute or 20-minute 5 stages, right? We just did what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I'm feeling good about it, but I just want to point that out. So now we're going to do our personal check-in, and this is a 3x3 check-in. So I'll go first. All you have to do is I just invite you to like take me in, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to do it. I'm going to give you an opportunity to go. Okay.
Okay.
And I just ask that at the end, when I say, my name is Chris and I'm checking in for a second time, you just acknowledge that you heard me and say, like, thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to talk through it, and then I'm going to do it. I'm going to kind of do it at the same time in the middle. So first, I'm going to say, my name is Chris and I'm checking in. And I'm going to take a deep breath in my nose, maybe a few sniffs, and then I'm going to exhale. I'm going to bring my energy and awareness out into the space around me. I'm going to notice 3 things in the environment around me. I'm going to describe those things to you in a dry yet descriptive way. Okay. And that kind of language is important. So then I'm going to take a deep breath in my nose, out my mouth. I'm going to bring my energy and awareness into my body. I'm going to just zoom in. I'm going to label 3 things I notice on or in my body. And again, I'm going to describe it in dry yet descriptive language. I'll tell you why that's important at the end. And then I'm going to take a deep breath in my nose, out my mouth. I'm going to scan my emotional state. And I'm just going to say like 3 ways I feel emotionally. I don't have to be right, just going to be creative. 3 different ways I feel emotionally. I'm going to say, my name is Chris and I'm checking in. Then I ask you to say, thanks, Chris.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what's the reason for the dry yet descriptive language? Language is the primary tool that we use in our heads and out loud to relate to our experience. Right? And that type of language comes in 4 parts. It's called formative language. It's the language I use to form my relationship with my experience.
Yeah.
That has 4 types: amplification, suppression, judgment, and story. So I amplify, I suppress, I judge, and I tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad or good. We are becoming conscious of it.
Mm-hmm.
Our skill in the practice is to become aware of, oh, I just amplified my experience. I just suppressed my experience. I just judged my experience. I told a story about it. And then to be able to drop out of that, to be with the experience more and more. So an example is like, I feel a little sad is very different than I feel sad.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do this. I'm going to check in, but I'm going to check in my natural way, which means you're likely going to get very few amplifiers, suppressors, judgments, or stories. I might share some of them with you while I go through that just pop off automatically. But when I'm listening to you, I'm going to be receiving you. And when I do that, I might give you an adjustment. And what an adjustment is it's me coming into your space and pointing at, oh, you just amplified, or you suppressed, or you judged, you told a story. And then you have the opportunity to receive my adjustment. And so what you would do is you would just say whatever you were saying without those words.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
If you
Tracking.
don't want an adjustment, just go like this. Just be like, no. If you want more, go like this. If you want a little less, just go like that. And
Okay.
that's how
So
we
for
start to attune.
people listening, he put, if you don't want an adjustment, you put your hand up. If you want
Yeah.
more, as if you're like calling it in, like beckoning. And then if
Yeah.
you want less, kind of like fingers pointed down.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're kind of, you can use these hand gestures.
Yeah. Okay. So I am Chris and I'm checking in. I'm exhaling, inhaling. I notice a fingerprint on a screen. I notice the sound of the heating pipes creaking. And I notice a piece of artwork on the wall and the story in my head about it being made by my fiance, Anna.
Okay.
Physically honoring my body. I notice I just licked my tongue on the top of my mouth and swallowed. My right palm is clammy. There's a soft pressure on the top right temple of my inside of my brain. Emotionally, I feel patient, I feel creative, and I feel friendly. I'm Chris and I'm checking in.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, man. Good job. Your turn.
Okay. All right. So I just want to clarify.
I'll
My
walk you through it.
okay, good. I
Yeah.
was gonna say.
Three, take a deep breath in your
Okay.
nose, out your mouth, overextend your exhales. And you're gonna notice it's 3 by 3. So you're gonna notice three things in your environment, three things honor in your body, and three ways you feel emotionally. And just go for it. There's
Okay.
no getting to do this your first time is beautiful. You get to learn how to do it.
Yeah. So three things I notice in my environment. Let me just breathe one more time.
I'm Dr. Dave and I'm checking in.
I'm Dr. Dave and I'm checking in. Three things I notice in my environment is the record button on the Zoom call, my black box of a phone, and the sound of the space heater in my environment.
Take a deep breath in your nose. Zoom in on your body. Three things you notice, honor in your body.
Three things I notice on or in my body is a feeling of a band of slight tightness around my belly.
Slight.
Slight,
Try
slight
saying tightness in my belly.
tightness in my belly. Tightness in my belly. Um, the noise of the swallow I just had, and the easiness about myself.
Mm. Deep breath in your nose. And then just three ways you're feeling emotionally.
Three ways I'm feeling emotionally are playful, joyful, and connected. I'm Dr. Dave and I'm checking in.
Good to be with you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good to be here.
Yeah.
What do you notice? What shifted? What changed?
I'm noticing my playfulness, my connection,
Yeah.
man. I love being in space with other men and I love connecting.
Yeah.
It's a great joy for me.
Awesome. So if anyone is here listening, like you're welcome to pause it and just go right now. Right. But now we've created a space between us. There is an empty space between us.
Mm.
And now we can share into that space if we wanted.
Mm.
We don't have to, but what we did is we've come through these rungs and now if we were in a group of men, we would all do this and then I would say, now the space is open. If any man would like to use the space, you're welcome to go. And that means he gets to check in and say, I'm Chris, I'm checking in with something. Now, right before we do that, I would just be like, Dave, you and me, let's take a deep breath. And when we exhale, the space is open. And then now, when we share into the space, if a man shares something, if I shared something right now, when I share it, you're so attuned to your body and you've cleared it, you've come into the body that when I share something, it's gonna place a finger on something inside of you. And that's gonna trigger a story in your head, a thought, a mood, a judgment, a story, a belief system. And because we've created this container, you aren't enmeshed with me.
Mm.
You can tell that I am not doing this to you.
Yeah.
When I said something, something happened in your experience, and you can learn to work with it. And that's
Mm.
what we call using the space or learning to work with what's in the space. And so after I share, you might say, hey, Chris, I noticed, I'm checking in with a reflection. I noticed when you shared what you said and you said something about your work, my whole body, I shut down and I had this memory of blah, blah, blah. And now I'm helping you gain awareness of yourself, right? Like that's how we learn to work with what's in the space. And that whole somatic process is in the body and it's called interoception. And if we are tense, it's always felt through tension, right?
Mm.
Right? It wakes us up. And so then at the end, and we'll do it briskly here, we always close the container. You and I just checked in.
Yep.
Would you like to share anything? Would you like to do a check-in or just real quick? Don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so give me an example, like speaking on my life
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Something in your life, something for 1 minute. I'll give you 1 minute.
okay. Okay. Perfect time. All right. So I would say I'm Dr. Dave. I'm checking in,
Yep.
and
Go ahead
then
and do it. And then
and then
just
I
share.
and then I just share.
So, but do it.
Um, I
First
feel
say I'm Dr. Dave and I'm checking in like for real.
okay. All right. All right. So
It's important.
I'm Dr. Dave and I'm checking in.
I got you.
Okay.
Now another man just said he has you.
Mm.
So your protective parts can relax a little bit knowing that another human being has you.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
So go.
I am in tension with my wife in our relationship on the subject that I feel her walls and I'm sick of her walls. I'm
What are you
kind of,
feeling right now?
where am I feeling?
What are you feeling?
Um, I feel a bit, I still feel easy
A
in
bit?
in our, say again.
I feel a bit what?
I feel more tension sort of down the center of my vessel, more tension. Down
What's the tension saying to you?
mm. Let down your own walls.
Yeah.
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 Damn it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the laughter? What's the
Yeah.
laughter?
It's like oh, that's it. I gotta do it. I gotta do the work. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there I'm flowing with you, man. Like I feel open and connected. I feel like that the story in my head is that was true right there.
Yeah.
What is there a stretch here for you? Is there a way that you just in this place you can embody or you can see yourself letting down your walls in like a small, real physical way?
Hmm. Honoring, I can let down my wall by honoring my wife's position where she is at in
Mm,
her evolution and surrendering to the idea that she has to be different.
mm. How do you do that right now?
Mm. Maybe guide me a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead and just come into a posture, like roll your shoulders back
Okay.
and just be with her, be with you and I right here. and just open to that. Just open to her, open to me.
Okay.
And when you said judge where she is in her process, I felt tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
just want you to open to that tension. Just be with it.
Mm,
Yeah. What was that on your face? You just went,
mm.
and wait, yeah, what is that? What
It's
is this? This is your thing, man.
I move. I'm a mover. When I feel
Yeah,
energy, I let it,
yeah,
I
yeah.
surrender and I just
Okay.
let it
I
go.
got your stretch for you, okay?
Yeah. I'm here.
You ready to craft it together? I'm gonna put 1 more minute on the clock.
Okay.
Your stretch is to find a time after this, and you get to deny or accept this stretch, okay?
Yeah.
To be in presence with her, like in relation, like in the kitchen or around the house. And your stretch is to be with her, be in the environment. And then I want you to actually be to do this without her knowing what you're doing.
Mm,
Like you're just gonna do what you just did with me. You're gonna like open to like be with her. You're accepting her as who she is. And then when you realize, like, okay, I just did it. I'm doing my thing. I'm doing my stretch. I want you to celebrate for yourself.
mm. Okay.
Right. And so my way of celebrating it when I'm doing it in front of my partner without her knowing is I squeeze my right fist and I give myself a smile. I squeeze it as hard as I can for a few seconds until I get tired. And then I let it go. And I'm like,
Okay.
right,
I accept that stretch, that challenge. You like the word stretch or challenge?
stretch.
Stretch. I
You're
stretch.
stretching yourself.
Yeah.
You're stretching yourself here to be with her. You're accepting her. You're embodying being accepting, right?
Yeah, I feel
And
that. Embodying the yes, the essence of accepting.
exactly as she is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
That was beautiful, man.
Anything you need to share, say to complete your share?
That I think that was amazing. I think that was
Cool.
a great opportunity. Thank you for
All
allowing
right.
me into that space.
So close your share. I'm Dr. Dave. I'm checking in.
I'm Dr. Dave and I'm checking in.
Thank you, Dr. Dave. All right, let's check out. I'm Chris. I'm checking out. I'm feeling joyful, firm, and bold. I'm Chris. I'm checking out. I'll pass it on to you.
I'm Dr. Dave. I'm
That's
checking
my
out.
time. That's my duck timer.
The duck
Go ahead.
timer. I love it. I'm Dr. Dave. I'm checking out. I feel reassured. I feel confident and I feel ready. I'm Dr. Dave. I'm checking out.
Let's just give it a little celebration, high five for yourself. We did it.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So now we move briskly through each step, but
Yeah.
notice that like when you did your share, I noticed you like, it seemed like, okay, maybe are we done or whatever. We didn't skip it. You checked out, right?
Mm,
You said, I'm Dr. Dave and I'm checking in. And then I was like, thank you. Right. I
yes.
affirmed, right? Then I
Yeah.
was like, okay, now I can close it. I'm Chris.
Yeah.
I'm checking out. You closed it.
Yeah.
And we left the door of the container closed.
Mm,
Every time you and I practice that together, our protective parts start to trust the container to be able to
I feel
go
that.
more and more, right? If I was like, oh, we can leave it open, we're out of here, or we lost the internet connection or some Zoom shut down and I lost you, I would actually call you back and I'd be like, hey, can we just quickly check out?
Yeah.
Because the container is what we're learning to make and to hold. And
Yeah.
then the more we bring more and more challenging things in, right?
Yeah. That feels right because it's a release and allowing for us to express what we're holding on to and surrender. And then it's like the etheric container is, it's in that. It's like, okay, now I can check
Yeah.
out. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And you brought something real and you worked with it in a different way. And now you have a stretch to integrate what happened in the space to show up in a different way. And we're not working with your idea of your wife. We're working with like, how do I physically embody how I want to show up in her presence?
Yeah.
And now you get to do it. And then if we were going to meet again, I mean, honestly, man, I would love to hear how it goes. But like that's how we practice.
That's beautiful.
This whole thing is practicing. We I mean we did a bunch of practices in here.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
cool.
This is like a really fun podcast for me. I received quite a bit. I want to thank you, man. Like I thank you again for your time and for the wisdom, the Jedi mind tricks of deliciousness that you brought. I don't call them mind tricks. That's a wrong term there, but it's like
heart tricks, heart weapons.
The heart openers. That was man. That was beautiful. As you and I close this container, is there any way that the guys can reach out to you to be a part of your group, your collective? Where can they find you?
Unshakableman.com.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
That's unshakableman.com. Just go check it out. If you are looking to experience more of what we just did and tap into that softness, I definitely feel like I'm gonna come. Actually, I don't want to say I'm definitely feel I am going to come to one of your retreats in the coming year. We'll find a time.
I'd love it, man. Yeah, I'd love it. I would love to share that experience with you. Yeah. I'm interested in yours as well. Yeah. That's the reason I'm here.
Yeah, so, man. We're doing the work, man. This is beautiful. So, all right, my friend, I do need to cut us off. Thank you again for your time. And as always, I love all of you for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Unbreakable Man podcast. If you found this episode valuable, then go ahead and leave a 5-star review explaining how this podcast has helped you so more people can find it. If you want to be a part of the Brotherhood, then click the link in the description below. You can also check out the Unbreakable Man experience if you're ready to face a deeper challenge and change your life for the better in just 3 days. All right, guys. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate you. And as always, stay unbreakable.